I'm on the front porch here. It's a little chilly. Kent! Yeah, all right, it's working.
What's up? How
And
you doing, brother?
amazingly, hey, really good. I,
Hey,
I decided to not put my Browns jacket on, but we haven't been much of a threat there in a while.
man, hey, everybody has their team. Much respect to all of that and all the Chaplain brotherhood across the league, man. It's
Uh-huh.
just it becomes that brotherhood. So, got
Yeah,
it. Did you grow up in that area?
yeah. I grew up in Cleveland
Okay,
area, and then met my wife on Athletes and Action staff down in Dayton at the headquarters, and then she's
okay,
from Knoxville. So after we got married, we came down
nice.
this way.
All right, man.
Well,
So
hey,
this is your spot where you do the IG lives. You're outside right now in the frozen tundra.
my spot is this is two in a row. I've done a couple lives. I've kind of mixed spots, but welcome to my front porch. I have played
Nice.
around thinking that I could do like a front porch series or
There it
kind
is.
of in my own. So welcome, little front porch conversation.
That's great, man.
Get some
That's
good
great.
lighting
Well,
outside.
thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Ken, it's good to meet you. So, hey, we'll dive in to some of these topics as people are scrolling. It's scroll culture, so we'll catch a few people, but we definitely want to talk about your book and Super Bowl breakfast. But
Yes, sir.
if I jumped in when we talked on the phone the other day, what I thought was really fascinating was you talking about. So you were a pastor for how long were you a teaching pastor?
Yeah, dude. So I was a youth pastor for 10
Okay,
years, and then for 13 years was a pastor of a great church in
okay.
Pittsburgh. And that's actually how everything kind of started happening, where I would become eventually jumping on staff with Athletes in Action. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, well, actually, let's start right there. Tell us how did you told me on the phone, but how did that transition go from working at a church to being, I guess, getting the call, uh, drafted to the Steelers?
Yeah, man. So, like, the way that I kind of share the story is that, and I'm sure that people who are going to watch this, you've just had like this moment where you know something's coming, but you can't put your finger on it, you know? And God was kind of giving me a heads up because I just sensed and I knew that something new was coming, but I didn't know what it was. And it was at that point, like, okay, God, what are you doing? And at that point, the crazy thing about that I've learned in the NFL, man, is that guys get traded and cut, and it's like weekly. And one of the NFL players, San Francisco 49ers, he was traded to the Steelers, and his name is Vance McDonald. He began to attend the church where I was pastor. And it just so happened he after the service he came up and he said, "Man, can we grab a cup of coffee? And I just need to talk to somebody because I'm brand new to the city, and I just need some guidance. I need some help." And he said, because the Steelers don't have a chaplain in San Francisco, we had a chaplain, but here in Pittsburgh, we don't have a chaplain. And to me, I was like, what does a chaplain do in the NFL? Like I didn't really have a category for that. That like chaplain in the army makes sense. Hospital chaplain made sense, but like what does an NFL chaplain do? And so we just sort of talked and we got to know each other. And eventually one thing led to another where Vance, Coach Tomlin was looking for a chaplain for his team at the time. This is back in 2019. And Vance, essentially asked me, "Hey, man, do you know of anybody who would be interested in becoming the chaplain?" And God kind of, I don't know how to explain it other than like, I knew in my knower that something was up. Like, I wonder if that's me. But I didn't like try to chase it down or anything. And one thing led to another. And Vance introduced me to Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin vetted me for quite a while. And then he eventually invited me. And here's the crazy part is I didn't know about that the position was through Athletes in Action. I thought I was going to be hired by the Steelers. I didn't know how any of it worked. And so when Coach T invited me to join staff with Athletes in Action, he didn't just ask me, he asked my wife, Erica, to join staff with Athletes in Action as well to serve as the Steelers chaplain. And now we've been we've been chaplains here serving the men and women of the Steelers organization, the team, for 7 seasons now. So,
Wow.
and as we big coaching change now, we'll see what God has in store for our future. So,
Okay, so you are, and that's going to be one of my questions. Is there's a coaching change? So what you don't sounds like you might not know what that means for you right now.
yeah, I think eventually I'll get a meeting that, every team does chaplaincy
Yeah.
different.
Hmm.
Every coach might approach that differently. And so we're just kind of waiting to hear right now. There's so much going on with the Steelers organization. They're trying to get a coaching staff, all hired out. I'm sure at some point we'll have a conversation as to what that looks like for the future.
Okay. So some of that jump into the NFL. Now, most people they make that jump into the NFL. It's their dream. They've been dreaming of it. There's not a there's no one has to push them to say do it afraid. Go do the NFL, do it afraid. But you have a little different story. Um,
Yeah.
uh, what does do it afraid mean to you? And I know part of this jumping into being a chaplain and joining the NFL. There's a fear factor you had to step into.
Yeah, man. So that you obviously wrote this book, Do It Afraid, and it really, like, the book started out as I was going to write this for my daughters, like our family, God story. I wanted to pass, some of our God stories down to my girls, but then it like started to morph into this idea of I think that everybody struggles to trust God especially when it like costs you something. It's easy, if you will, when things are comfortable and you got a steady paycheck and you got just this incredible position and everything's going right. So I started to broaden out, if you will, the audience for this writing, and it took me about 18 months, almost 2 years, to get this process rolling. But essentially, the first half of the book is our journey, my wife and I's journey in ministry. And sometimes we felt like we made good decisions in following God's call on our life, and then sometimes we got ahead of God and we hit the rocks, so to speak, and we led with a limp, thereafter. And so it's like sometimes we made good decisions, sometimes we made bad decisions, and each of the times that we were trying to follow God into the call on our lives, man, there was this fear that we had. God, how are we going to provide? God, we have to move to another state, another city, and there's fear with that because, man, I got to figure everything out again. And it just came this whole idea of like anything that's worth doing that God's going to call you to do, you're going to have natural fear. That's why in the scriptures, man, it's always talking about if an angel comes and speaks to Mary or Joseph, hey, do not be afraid, right? Because they are fearful. And faith doesn't mean that you won't have fear. It's just I'm going to step in the face of fear. That's what courage is. I have fear, and I'm going to do this anyway because I trust God more than I trust what I can see in front of my eyes with the current circumstances. And so the first part of the book is really our journey, especially, it kind of culminates into this call from Coach Tomlin to jump into like two unknown worlds. We didn't know what athletes in action, like we didn't have a category for that. I had heard about it, but I didn't know about it. And then into the unknown world of the NFL. I'm a pastor in the local church context back in that time. That's all I knew. 22 years worth of serving in the local church. And then I'm faced with this decision of, okay, am I gonna jump on staff with Athletes in Action, the missions organization of Crew? It's the sports ministry. Am I gonna raise, two salaries, my wife and my salary, to do something like this? So, bro, like I had 3 teenage daughters at the time, and I'm staring weddings, I'm staring college tuition for 3 times over, and I'm going, God, I'm not sure that this is smart. Like this is not wise. And then to go into the business of the NFL, I don't know what it was like to be a chaplain in the NFL. What does that even mean? Super unknown territory. But eventually we got to the point where we knew that God was calling us to do this. Like a part of the book that I wrote, the second half of the book is like when people are faced with hard decisions, how do you know that you're making that decision with confidence that God is the one who's telling you to do it? Because here's what I believe about God's call. He does not ask us. He doesn't like, what's your opinion on this? No, God, when he calls people, he tells people to go. And eventually we had to get to the point where, like the last chapter of the book is that we yielded everything that we wanted. Okay, God, we're going to die to ourselves, our comfort, our steady paycheck, our known positions, and we're going to die to ourselves. We're going to yield to your call, and we're going to go for this because you're not asking us to do this. You're telling us to do this, and we don't want to be disobedient to your call on our life. And so that's essentially what Do It Afraid is all about. And bro, like we've had multiple daily decisions of, okay, we don't even have a category for this, but we have big faith for this, and we're going to do it afraid because our yes is louder than our fear, and we're going for it, and we trust that God's going to work it all out.
Well, I love hearing it. I've learned in my own life, I wouldn't usually have identified it as fear, but in the last year, I've realized, wow, I'm really fearful.
Yeah,
Usually, I don't want to enter into that category. I try and avoid a lot of that. But
yeah,
I started recognizing, oh, that's in these feelings of uncomfortableness. It's like,
yeah.
oh, those are actually that's fear.
Yeah, dude, and so I open the book, and dude, it's not about the book, but it's this sense of, okay, we have to learn to be able to name our fear because all of us have these underlying currents that are in the background of our lives that we don't even know are the reason why we're behaving or making decisions in certain ways. So I've learned through like counseling sessions, I've gone through counseling, like we got to name that fear. We got to put an actual name to it. And in the book, I've got two really distinct stories of when I was a kid that now I understand these are the underlying root issues that have been driving my life for like 30, 40 years. And so how do you unravel from those types of underlying currents that are basically, in my case, which is wild that God has called us to be missionaries with athletes in action, because my story is when I was a little kid, money became a thing for me because I grew up in Pittsburgh when the steel mills around here, they all collapsed. My dad was a part of that. He lost his job. My parents really struggled financially. And so money became a thing for me, like trusting in money rather than trusting in God as my provider. And so it drove me to want to live a comfortable life, to never struggle financially. I even like went back into some of the things that happened to me when I was a kid, and I realized like, wow, the fear of not having enough for myself and my family is actually driving the decisions. And I didn't even realize it until I did the hard work in counseling to actually name my fear. So I've literally named my fear IOU because there's a really vivid story in my past about I found an IOU from my mom. She borrowed money from me, and it just something happened. Like it was a very I don't even know fully how to describe it. I tried to in the book. It was this vivid moment for me where I realized, holy goodness, we're poor. And my mom's borrowing money from me as a paper boy. And so I was like, okay, I realized that she was just probably short of cash that day. But I think that the enemy of my soul imprinted a seed of doubt, of deceit in my life that began to grow over time and eventually almost choked me out from living God's call out in my life because I just wanted to be comfortable and provide for my family, which
Yeah.
isn't a bad thing, right? But sometimes we can rob our families from recognizing that God is the provider, not me. And so I wrestle with that still to this day, man. Like it's a underlying fear that I've got to put in its place.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. I don't want to live where I have to feel fear. I kind of have this idol of comfort.
Yeah,
The
man.
in our lives being on staff, there is a unique. I think there's a healthy interdependentness that cultivates, but it's like I don't want that every day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I something else you said of the hard work, but I like the phrase doing the hard work of heart work.
yeah, that's
And
good.
because you're talking about naming your fears, and I'd be curious just to kind of play off that a little bit, because when you're working with these high level athletes, they're tough. Here's what, all right, you got all these tough dudes. They're the toughest of tough. How do you start entering into where we're all driven by these, you know, they have fears in the NFL locker room. You see these people who think they got everything because there's big paychecks. What are some of the realities that you see of fears in the NFL locker room?
Yeah, man. So I think there's a bit of a how do I want to put this? Even a cultural misunderstanding of money in the NFL. There's a whole bunch of guys in an NFL locker room that we assume they make a ton of money, and that's actually not the case. You might hear about the bigger contracts of certain guys, but that's only a small percentage. So I wanted to say that because when you think about a guy who is trying to, all right, bro, I don't know if I'm even going to make this squad. I'm on the bubble here. I'm on the practice squad. I would love to get up onto the actual roster, the 53 man. But you have a bunch of dudes in the NFL that are very concerned about how do I provide for my family? It's a real thing for all of us, right? And just because a guy made it to the NFL doesn't mean he's got a fat paycheck. A small percentage might experience that. But it's the same for all of us. How do I provide? Because these guys broke into the NFL. They're the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And then the expectation comes from family members, from friends, uncles who come out of the woodwork. Now that you made it to the league, hey, my hand is out, kind of thing. And I hear about that pressure because they want to do right by their family, by their coaches, by those who help them get there. But at the same time, man, the NFL stands for not for long. And there's this sense of I got to also plan for my future because this money will not last. The statistics are staggering about guys who made it to the league, but then, shortly thereafter, man, I don't have any money. I'm broke. And there's so many reasons for that, right? But I think some of the real fear, just like you and me, like identity, the fear of my identity is tied to what I do. And I love what Coach Tomlin, has taught all of these years that I've been serving under him, that football is what you do. It's not who you are. But the reality is that this is all these guys have ever known, right? That their identity can be tied. So when the transition happens out of the league, there's the question that I think all of us wrestle with. who am I outside of what it is that I do for a living, right? And so, man, I think that there's so many other fears that are out there because let's be real. Just because these guys are on our screens, I want everybody to pray for these guys because they're just normal dudes, just like you and me. They have, wives or girlfriends, families that are with them, and that every time that we see a transaction take place, a guy gets cut, a guy, gets traded, and we think, oh, hey, it doesn't matter because he's got, money or whatever. No, bro, think about his family. His life just got turned upside down. His wife and his children, their lives just got turned upside down. New schools, they got to move now. Who likes any of that stuff? So the life of an NFL player, man, there's a lot of fear that comes along. And these guys have learned. How about this one? Here's another fear, that if I don't perform well today in practice, I could be cut tomorrow. Like, none of us have to deal with that. But the film is always being played. And the margin is slim between those who are on the practice squad compared to who are on the 53 roster, compared to there's another guy that maybe just got released, and the business of the NFL is that, okay, we want him, and now somebody's got to get to release. If I don't perform well today, I might get cut tomorrow. There is so much pressure there that we can pray for these guys because, man, that weight is on the mentals, and that weight is on their heart as they lay their head on the pillow at night saying, did I do enough today to be able to secure tomorrow? So there's a lot of fear in the NFL, man.
Made me hear. I think it was one of our last staff conferences. We had a speaker came that was a high recruit in the NFL, but when he got there, he performed awful because the pressure. It was amazing, like the things you don't necessarily think about. But I've heard, your emotional state, all these things get all out of whack because of that fear of performance.
Yeah.
And even it's always fascinating. Even the best of the best, still the fears kick in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wait, I'm going to switch gears a little bit on the. So you now have the experience of kind of pastoring in an NFL locker room. What counsel from those experiences? What counsel would you tell your former self that was pastoring a traditional congregation? We'll kind of talk both ways, like what you learned, how each can learn from one another in those spaces.
Yeah, I have loved being a pastor of a local church. I love my church. I'm still a part of the same church where I was pastor, just no longer on staff anymore. So I loved pastoring the church context. And I've also loved the stretch opportunity of simply being available as a chaplain in the Steelers facility as a guest in that building. And some of the things that I've learned, man, is that as a pastor in the local church context, you get a very shiny version of people who come to you, who come to the building that you steward. They come with a smile on their face usually. And unless they break the barrier and really get real with you, which I would say is maybe 5% of people, who would come to you that way and get really raw and honest. So you get a shiny version as a pastor of a local church. And what I've learned in the NFL, man, being a guest in the Steelers facility, is that as I enter their territory, their room as a guest, I get to see their best days and their worst days. I get to see like how they respond in a good way versus just like all of us, man, I did not respond to that well. I get to see fights. I get to see, all of like real life stuff because guys are just being themselves. And quite honestly, like it has been very refreshing to be able to go into a space and to be invited to do Bible studies and things like this where guys are very real and very honest and open, and they're not pretending. Like, dude, it's been, and this will come off like funny, but like I'll never forget my first season leading a Bible study, and dudes were just, they were there, they were hungry for it, and then in the middle of it, they were dropping F-bombs and swearing, and I'm just going, okay, I'm not a pastor of a local church anymore. It's just, kind of funny that way. But at the same time, I was like, you know what? Ain't nobody pretending in this room. And I loved it. So while I love pastoring in the local church context, I also love the privilege and the stretch opportunity right now to just be with people on their level, on their playing surface as a guest, and to just simply be available to, hey, bro, how you doing today? Is there anything Erica and I can do to serve you or your wife or your girlfriend? Like, we're just here to serve. And man, it's just been, I'm grateful to God. Look at what he's done that we get to do this. And it's a real privilege to serve in this way.
I love those insights, just hearing the differences of the two different congregations, and I think there is something, man, when you just see the rawness of just where people, when people just let you into where they really are, it's a sacred space.
Yeah. And I guess, like, I don't want to say that it doesn't happen in the church context, but I feel like you have to almost pull teeth to make that happen. You got to create like really safe environments for people to cross over those trust barriers, because, a lot of people don't trust the church. A lot of people don't trust pastors anymore. And I get it. I understand a lot of reasons to not trust guys like me. I understand. But now in my role, like, trust is still the currency, of the NFL. Don't get me wrong there. But as a guest and getting to see people in their raw self already, they're not trying to pretend, and you're entering into that as a guest rather than trying to pull that out of people. And so, man, they're just two very different ways of doing ministry, and I love both of them. So I'm just, God in his sense of humor, took a kid from Beaver County in Pittsburgh, and he allowed me to do this with the team that I grew up loving, watching, and now to be able to shepherd and pastor and come alongside the men and women of this team. What a privilege, bro.
Yeah, man, the phrase "trust as a currency" is so pivotal. How have you sensed, again, kind of comparing your congregations of building trust, like versus in your church context versus like how do you do it in in the NFL context?
Yeah, the way that we kind of describe it is just simply, man, we're alongsiders. We are available. And it's not just, we try to convince people real quickly that we're not just, everybody sees us as the God people. And whatever perception of that they have, I will have to work to overcome that, good or bad. And so I think that the invitation from Coach Tomlin to be able to be a guest 24/7 in the facility, to be accessible to these guys at practice and in team meetings and things like that, over time, they begin to see, okay, this dude doesn't have an agenda. Like, he's not asking me for favors. He's not asking me for autographs. He's not trying to get something from me. And eventually, that started to get easier to earn dudes' trust quicker, because some of the veterans were saying, hey, bro, you can trust that dude. He's not a salesman. He literally is just trying to care for you and your family. So whatever that means, whatever you need, the guys call me PK, Pastor Kent. So PK and his wife, Erica, are here to serve you. and it's getting easier with those veterans who are advocating on our behalf. Because honestly, man, like this, I don't want to say, yeah, I will say, God had to convince Erica and me to jump into this. So we had to ask all the hard questions of ourselves. Like, am I just trying to do this to get close to these Steelers players and the Steelers? Like, am I trying to be famous adjacent? You know, like what are the motives of my heart? And honestly, like we came into this and we're going, okay, God, you had to convince us hard to do this because nobody would blame us for like, are you kidding me? We have two steady paychecks. We have two great jobs that we love and we've been there for over a decade. Nobody would blame us for saying, we're good. We don't want to raise our money salaries to do this. Like we were convinced that God called us to do this. And so we came in, I believe with really pure motives to say like, bro, we're just here to serve because God told us to, and that's it. We don't need anything from you. We're just here to serve you. And hopefully guys see that, girls see that in the NFL, that we have the privilege to walk alongside. So I don't know if I fully answered your question. I sort of went off there, but my bad.
Yeah, we're good. Super Bowl's this week.
Yeah.
And faith seems to play a role. We keep seeing it. I mean, it's fascinating. It's not just the NFL. It's all around sports. There's the Jesus One shirts are all over the place.
Yeah.
But what have you seen in terms of how faith is lived out at the highest level of sport?
Yeah, man. So what I love about social media is that it has highlighted what has already existed for a long time. And so faith has been a part of the NFL. And guys who risked it back in the 80s and 90s to do prayer circles after the games, you're now seeing on social media that has been happening now for 30, 40 years because people are highlighting it. So I love the sports spectrums. I love, the different organizations that are highlighting faith at the Super Bowl. Like literally, before we got on, I was seeing, these conversations and reporters asking about their faith. I believe that's existed for a long time, but now guys have a legit platform and people are very curious about their faith and they're asking them about it. And so I love what it is that we're seeing out at the Super Bowl. Like I've been a part of, I think we're going to talk about the Super Bowl breakfast that Athletes in Action does. And that's been going on for a really long time. But now because of social media, a lot of people know about it and it's sold out all the time. But this is the most viewed sporting event. And so now that people are talking about their faith, I think that simply this platform is magnifying who people really are, right? Good or bad. And so when you see guys talking about their faith openly and just simply, they're not like preaching. They're not saying you have to be, it's not that. They're just being humble. Like, bro, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what I'm about. I'm not trying to Bible bash you right now, but this is who I am. And so, man, you even see it like at the Grammys the other night, man. You got people, who are specifically naming Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. Like that name is a controversial name, but man, people are going for it right now in ways that I think existed before, but we just happen to be seeing it now because of things like this and social media and people are picking up on that. And so out at the Super Bowl right now, I love that things like worship nights are taking place the night before the Super Bowl. You have Coach Dungy and his team that are doing amazing work. You have Sports Spectrum working with Compassion International. You have IJM's Team Freedom, who's connected to the NFL athletes. that are doing incredible work to fight against human trafficking, because we know that at the Super Bowl, it is the largest event for human sex trafficking in the history of all mankind. It's happening at the Super Bowl. And so you have NFL athletes who are involved saying, not on my watch. And they're doing something about it with International Justice Mission and their ongoing work that they've been doing for 30 some years. And so, man, but it's not, what I love about it's not Bible bashing. It's just, this is who I am, and this is who I'm going to continue to be. And I think that should be celebrated, because, you know, we're celebrating all kinds of things in our culture. And so why not Jesus? Why not what he's done in my life? When I can look back over at my life and say, man, I would not even have this opportunity to be in the Super Bowl outside of the talents and the abilities that God has given to me. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to deflect the glory back to God where it belongs, because he's the one who even got me here in the first place. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of capable men who could be in the Super Bowl, but God has, for whatever reason, those two teams, those athletes, they get the opportunity at the highest level to deflect the glory back to God where it belongs. And also realize, man, this isn't about me. This is about my team. This is a God thing and a team thing that I'm going to deflect the glory to them. And so, man, I get fired up that at the highest level that we see faith on display, because that's who guys are, man. And it's okay to say that.
Yeah, it's been interesting to see it take a little more front page news this year. You know, some things happening around the Super Bowl, and but you got to go. I know you don't necessarily go every year, but a Steeler won. Was it 2 years ago? Won the Bart Starr Award. You were
Yeah.
there.
So Cam Hayward won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. And so I think we were out there for that, not in that specific, but we came out that year because also Minka Fitzpatrick, who was with the Steelers at the time, he won Athletes in Action's Bart Starr Award at the Super Bowl breakfast. So we were out there for that one. And then I think I was out in Arizona when it was out in Arizona, just watching how the Super Bowl works. And we were involved in some, you know, different ministry opportunities with Coach Dungy out there, and Athletes in Action and FCA doing some joint events together out at the Super Bowl. So yeah, I've been to a couple of them.
Well, great. Well, it's good to touch base with you here, Kent. And, you know, we're trying out these Instagram Lives. We've had a good number of people that have popped in. We've got a little number on right now.
Let's go.
So you got a book that came. You talked about the book. You want to tell us, it comes out next, what month? It's February. It comes out in March, correct?
Yeah. So folks can pre-order it now on Amazon, and they can be a part of. I kind of put together, because I believe in this message, obviously. So I put together these little ambassador groups that if people want to help get the message out, because all of us deal with this, and all of us, we have fear in our life. So how do we make those types of decisions when fear is driving us? How do we know God's in it? And so that little framework, the LEAP Pray framework, the LEAP, and then P turns into PRAY, helps people make those types of decisions. And so I want to help as many people as possible with what I feel like God downloaded to Erica and me from 30 years of following Jesus together. And so people can get that on Amazon right now to pre-order it. And if they do, let me know, and then I'll send you the digital manuscript. So private message me or whatever. So go get it on Amazon, and then it releases, like, it will come to people's door, physical copies, on March 24th. And then, you know, I'm excited to see what God's going to do with it, because I believe in the message that he's the one who gave it to me in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. It's fun to help be
people,
part of sharing it.
if they want to know about it, they can go to my website, kentchevalier.com. You can order it from there and all that fun stuff. But yeah, man, people can find out a lot more about Do It Afraid on the website.
Okay, and there was a question that came in. The book's not just for athletes, right?
Correct. I mean, and quite honestly, like, I mean, I was an athlete in high school, football, baseball, basketball, and there's some stories about like just my athletic. I can't even say it, so you can realize I'm not really, an elite athlete at all. But it's not for athletes. It's for people who feel stuck. It's for people who know that there's something out there and what they're doing for a job is.
Well, I think that's.
Did I lose you? We good? Okay.
I'm back. I think my sound disconnected.
Gotcha. I'm with you. But
All right,
but
but you
the
just I actually go back. You're, oh man, it was like everybody has. I think you're about to say everybody
yeah, so the
has a
the
fear.
it's not specifically for athletes. It's for people who are struggling to find their purpose.
Or,
Like, God, what are you calling me to do? Like, I'm in this, I don't want to say it like this, but I'm in this job that just sucks. And it's not fulfilling me, but it's paying the bills. Is that really what you want for your life? Like and so this book tries to, because I knew that something was coming in my life, and I started to feel like, instead of feeling like I was a pastor, I felt like I was a manager of staff. I felt like all I was doing was putting fires out. And I could sense that there was something new that was coming. And so if that even like resonates with anybody who's listening to this, like you're stuck in a dead end job, you're just doing it for the money. But if you have a dream that you know that God has put into your heart, I like to say, I knew in my knower that God was up to something, but there's hope, and you don't want to take a leap of faith without actually calculating the risk and calculating the jump radius to get to
yeah.
those things. So it's a story of jumping and having a leap of faith, but also how Erica and I approach those types of decisions. So if that resonates with anybody, not just athletes, I think we all face that. But then obviously there's stories in there about me being a chaplain and being an athlete and all that, because that's my passion and I love it. So
All right, wonderful. Look forward to checking that out. And anything else you want to put out there while we're still live?
uh, no, man, like, hey, if you're even curious about Athletes in Action and you're watching this thing, man, like go to Athletes in Action's website and check out what it is that what we're a part of. This is not just like a United States of America thing. This is a global movement. God's doing something in sports, and I just wish, bro, like I wish that I grew up at a high school that had an Athletes in Action program. Like, I wish I had people who were like a part of my locker room, because if I had those people in my life in the locker room, I wouldn't have made some of the stupid decisions that I made that really caused some pain and hurt. And not just for me, but for other people. If I had somebody, that's what Athletes in Action is all about, like trying to help and serve people on teams, every sport in every nation. And so, man, go check out Athletes in Action if you don't know about all of that. So, yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Instagram Live. I haven't done this since COVID, bro.
All right, last question. Who's your pick? Seattle, New England?
Oh man, this is so. Here's the thing: when you become a
You
chaplain,
start knowing people on everyone's team.
yeah, and like you got coaches, you got players that used to play at the Steelers and things like that. If I take my Chaplain hat off and I just turn on my NFL football fan, you know, I, I'm going to have to go with the Seahawks. And here's why. Dude, I grew up in Pittsburgh. And the Patriots just straight up broke our hearts so
Yeah.
many times. And so, bro, like and so did the Seahawks, but less times. And so, man, I'm gonna go with Seahawks on this. They're built, bro. And I've loved watching what they've been able to do this season. So yeah, man, I'm gonna go
Hey,
Seahawks. And then my,
you know,
John Rainey, who's the chaplain there, man, pulling for him. Not that I'm not pulling for Mitch Chaplain in New England, but yeah, I'm going to go Seahawks.
I will say I saw a hilarious social media skit. All the because that the draft Sam Darnold was part of, was loaded, and he's the first one to go to the Super Bowl. He's had
Yeah,
there's just
yeah,
this
dude,
skit of
that's a crazy
all the
stat
teams
because
he's been at, and now he's
exactly,
the first one in the Super Bowl. So
yeah,
I think that definitely his story is it's a great one. I'll pick
yeah.
Seattle too. Well, Kent, thanks for the time.
Jason, thank you, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
All
See
right,
you springboard.
yes, sir.
Bye.